Welcome to our second series of Lessons from a Birth and Baby Business Owner. And in this show, we are going to be speaking to those who are in or who have been in the birth and baby business world to ask them the questions that you would like to know the answers to on how they got to where they are in business right now. My name's Anna LaGrange and I'm one half of Baba Business, the Birth and Baby Business Academy.
And my name's Liz Stanford and I'm the other half of Baba Business, the community membership for birth and baby business owners. And today, me and Anna are very excited because we are talking to Suzy Ashworth, who I will introduce formally in a moment, but I just wanted to let you all know that Suzy is one person who's had a massive impact on both mine and Anna's business journeys and lives in general. So we were just saying a minute ago, we don't know where this podcast is going to go, but let's just see what happens. So Suzy Ashworth is a single mom of three, high school dropout, and author of Sunday Times best-selling book, Infinite Receiving. Very good book. Suzy is a success coach who has sold over 6 million in revenue since 2020. She both certifies coaches, helping them go from good to world-class, alongside helping them to build businesses that change lives, focusing on smart, simple strategies, the energetics of business, and high ticket selling. Her vision is to use the infinite receiving framework to help people be more of who they were put on this planet to be, creating more freedom, joy, abundance, and peace, one infinite receiver at a time. Her work has been featured in Forbes, Grazia, and the BBC. Always open to experiences life has to offer, Suzy has also lived in Mexico and Spain with her family and is now based back in the UK. What an intro!
I mean, it's
Amazing.
a very long intro. I feel like it needed to end before you go into where I'm featured. That's what I felt like comfortable up until you went, and then her work's been featured. And she's also, and I've definitely told them to drop that line from the end about where I've lived, because I don't think anyone really cares. But anyway, thank you, Liz, for reading that out so beautifully.
I think it shows what a dynamic, person you are. You've been all over the place. So I think that's a really good intro. And as I was reading it, I was thinking about the bit where it says that your vision is to help people be more of who they were put on this planet to be. And I really feel like this is way before infinite receiving came to life, but you definitely helped me do that. And I'm sure Anna would agree that, I became more of who I was supposed to be when you came into my life, my lovely. And so let's maybe roll back the years a little bit. And our audience are all birth and baby business owners. And so they might be thinking, how is this person gone to like 6 million in revenue since 2020 when she was once a birth and baby business owner? So maybe we should start at the beginning and how you came to be in this world once.
Yeah, well, through babies. As always, I think often with people in our world, we get pregnant ourselves, and those tiny little humans turn our entire worlds upside down. And so for me, I got pregnant with Caesar, who is now 13 years old, and 13 going on like 25. That's a whole other story. And immediately I knew that I didn't want to continue doing what I was doing, which up until that point had served me very, very well. I was selling advertising space for the Guardian newspaper in London, and I was good at that job, actually. But as soon as I got pregnant with him, I knew that I wanted to be able to say, you can do whatever you like. And I knew that it was true that he wouldn't believe me if I was still working that job, because whilst that job was easy and paid the bills, it wasn't lighting me up. It wasn't like my soul. I don't know. I wasn't using language like my soul needs to be set on fire at that point in time. But I think that there was a part of me that knew that there was more passion to be had when it comes to my day-to-day living. So that's where the seed was sown. And then when I got pregnant with Coco, I was like, okay, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I didn't know what it was other than leave. So I thought I need to retrain in something. And the story at that time in my life was I'm not very academic. I'm street smart. I'm not book smart. So I need to find a course that is going to be quite practical. And so I ended up training as a hypnotherapist and a psychotherapist and thought that I was going to help people with anxiety and depression. And I did start by doing that. And thought, fucking hell, I'm really anxious and this is really depressing me. So I can't continue doing that. And at the same time, I'd had Coco and I'd had Caesar at home in the water using hypnobirthing. I was super inspired. I thought everybody in the whole entire world needs to understand how they can create calm and positive birth experiences. So I decided to channel my energies into becoming a hypnobirthing instructor. And that's what I did. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Amazing. And you were really innovative right from the start in the birth and baby world, weren't you? Because you were coming into a world that was quite flowery and a bit sort of what's the word, like standoffish maybe, I don't know, but quite prim, I think it was back in the day. And you sort of came in and put your stamp on hypnobirthing. And what gave you the courage to do that?
So I'd done a course called B School, and that was quite revolutionary for me because at that point in time, I didn't know what an email list was. I barely knew what a website was. I didn't really know anything about online business. And within 3 weeks of being in that program, what occurred to me is that although there were at the time, they weren't online courses. What were they called? This is the perimenopause. I use words all the time. They kind of had, like, they did audio programs, didn't they? So you could kind of listen to people and you could go to in-person classes, but there was nothing that did video at that time. And so because of B School, I realised that there was an opportunity in the market to create a video-based hypnobirthing program. So for anybody that was a visual learner or wanted to kind of create that face-to-face stuff, but were too busy, were abroad, couldn't get their partners in the room to go to a class with them, like that would be a really good opportunity. And so whilst doing that program, which is only like 6 weeks long, I started thinking about what this could look like if I had my own hypnobirthing program. So I'd already trained and I'd already been doing stuff in person. I then did this course and I had this idea and I thought, there's an opportunity here, because at the time it was just Marie Mongan, Catherine Graves, Wise Hippo had kind of come in, but were very much, even though they had modernized it a bit, it was still very much the same format. And so it was the repackaging. And then also there were a couple of Black women in the birthing industry, people like Mars Lord, who were on the doula side of things, but there were really no women of colour. Like, it was very white, it was very middle class, it was very crunchy. It wasn't quite hippie, but you had a very, you probably ate lentils. Like, that was a big focus when it came to your diet if you were into hypnobirthing. And so there was a freshness and a different perspective just because I came from a business background, an advertising background. I was like going and it was manicures and like I was not natural. It was like manicures and pedicures. And I think the reason though hypnobirthing had been attractive to me is because I was also a control freak. So for me, I was like, how do I control this birth? Even though that is not what we teach people, but that's how I got into it. Like, how do I control having as few outside influences in this birth as possible? And so I just knew that the way that I thought was not unique to me. There was a whole market of media-ish, for want of a better like niche category, but media-ish people that went out, drank champagne at lunchtime, sometimes got their nails done, who were also not wanting to have loads of people interfering in their births. If we could brand this in like a cool, fresh way, they would be interested, whereas they would have looked at the other brands and been a bit like, no thank you. So that's the way that I was thinking when the Calm Birth School was born.
And what was that like, Suzy? Because back then, like now, it's quite easy to ask a few people a few questions about how do I set up an online business or how do I put a course online. But back then, it wasn't so obvious. You know what I mean? We didn't have this online world in the same way. How on earth did you like navigate all that as one person who was a mum as well and working?
So when I first started with the Calm Birth School, I actually had a business partner, which was interesting. It didn't end like in the best way, although she went on to be very, very successful in her right, and I went on to be very successful in my own right. And I would say just from that perspective, she was very focused on the design, like that was her forte, and I was very focused on the messaging, the marketing and the putting of the program together. And I spent a lot of time on YouTube, like a lot of time. Like I invested in a lot of courses. So my first year of business, I made minus £14,000 because of all of the investments that I made. And then I spent hours looking for like, how do you put a lead page together? And what's a good lead page and what's not a good lead page? So a lead page for anyone who's totally brand new is just how do you collect email addresses? And so, but I loved that. I was like, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of time, but the time that I do have, I am going to spend working this out, because I just knew that there was an opportunity, because nobody else was serving the market in the way that I wanted to serve them, and I just knew that that was an opportunity. So it's like I'm gonna do it. So I put in the man hours. I did it tired.
Yeah.
Which is what needs to be done, really, isn't it? I mean, the information is more accessible now and is literally 100%. At our fingertips, but you have got to invest time in learning all this stuff if you want your business to grow. But it's such an amazing, inspiring journey for people to listen to and to follow. And it really interests me that you said that you were minus 14 grand in your first year in business. Now, some people listening to that will be going, what? Is she mad? There's no way I could do that. But you must have just had this like unshakable belief that somewhere in you, this was going to lead to something that, you know, that is going to repay that debt tenfold. So where did that or does that self-belief come from?
I don't think it was self-belief at the time. I think it was that I was seeing other people like in that group, in the B School group. I saw people that had written books. Like that was weird to me. I was like, oh my God, like a normal person is like writing a book that they haven't even got a publisher for. They're self-publishing and they're putting it on Amazon. People are buying, like, oh, that's interesting. I'm seeing people in there being like, I've just made my first £5,000 month. And I'm thinking, oh, like that's just a like normal. I've just made my first 10. Oh God. So I think for me, it was less self-belief, but more these people are like random people who are in the same program as me. If they're doing it, like I'm sure I can work this out. Like I'm sure I can work it out. I think the other thing is that by retraining, I actually came top of my class, and that in and of itself was like, I sound like such a baby. I came top of the class, but it was such a big confidence booster for me
Yeah.
because I
Mm.
didn't think that I was a learner. I dropped out of school. So the fact that I
Mhm.
had put my attention and intention into something and then been rewarded, I think that I didn't, that meant something to me, and I made it mean something about everything else that I was doing. We're meaning making machines, and we give things meanings that either serve us and propel us forward or hold us back. And so what I did was look for evidence that was going to support me in keeping this wild and crazy dream going.
Yeah, and you did amazingly off the scale.
Yes.
I was just thinking about when you were talking about bringing you when you brought out the video program, the first hypnobirthing video course in the world,
In the
and
world.
in the world. And I was a hypnobirthing instructor at the time, and I think I'd been teaching for about 6 years, and I'd been teaching Mongan method. And then it felt like you just suddenly burst into my life. I was like, who is this person? And where is all this coming from? Oh my God. And I just devoured like everything that the Calm Birth School was putting out there, that you were putting out there.
Yeah.
And people were just, it was like you were magnetizing all
Mm.
of us kind of hypnobirthing instructors, but not just hypnobirthing instructors. It was
Yeah.
other people from the birth world
Yes.
towards you. And then I don't know what happened first, whether you started because you obviously started mentoring
Yeah.
with your program. Remind me what it was called. Was it the birth and
It was the
baby
baby
business
business
school, or
school.
the baby
Just
business
the baby
school?
business school. Yeah.
Um, the baby business school. And I remember obviously doing that course and being part of the group, and I'm sure Anna did as well. So what came first, the program or people being attracted to you? And how did it feel to then start to diversify really quickly from hypnobirthing over to the business world?
I So how it happened was a mentor that I was working with said to me, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? And I said I would teach people how to do what it is that I'm doing. So that was the first permission slip. I actually went and did it. But what was,
Brilliant.
and maybe I'm kind of going a little bit further on, but how I ended up leaving the birth world in order to solely focus on mentoring was just this real understanding that what was keeping me awake at night in a good way was understanding marketing, understanding messaging,
Wow.
understanding mindset. And what I was really clear on is everybody that I was working with and teaching, what was keeping them up at night was how do we get better breastfeeding rates? How do we help women? And, just everybody else is obsessed with birth, and I was obsessed with business. And so it made sense. I think that I held on to the Calm Birth School a little bit longer than what I actually wanted to, because I felt that having a separate business legitimized me being a business coach. And I was a bit like, I don't think anybody will want to invest with me if I can't say that I've got this business that's doing all of these great things. But when I finally did let that go, that's when things all flourished. So very grateful to have you, Liz, who decided to take on the mantle.
Yeah, gosh, that's like that's a rabbit hole to go down as well,
Yeah.
because I remember when I got a phone call from you. So at this point, we've skipped forward, but at this point, I was working within the Calm Birth School, managing the instructors, and I think I'd already written the training program at that point, but you'd come back from retreat, which I hadn't been on, which is unusual because I did go on quite a few of your retreat, and you were like, you phoned me, and it felt so out of the blue to me. I nearly passed out. I remember you going, I've just decided, yeah, I'm going to sell the Calm Birth School, and I'm going to sell it to you. You interested? Or something along those lines. I was like, well, yes, okay, yes, of course, let's do this, you know. And that was the start of the journey to you kind of transferring it over to me. And that was amazing. Like, that was life changing and totally manifested by me, but also you were manifesting something else, so it was all kind of in conjunction with each other. But yeah, it was a crazy, amazing time, and I'm still very, very grateful that I've had that opportunity.
I'm really thinking about all this letting go, because it's just bringing. I remember that time really well as well, Suzy, and I remember so well. Tell me if I've remembered this incorrectly. Is that you had the baby business school, and I think you'd maybe had or hadn't agreed for Liz to buy the Calm Birth School, but you had the baby business school, and I remember you putting loads of work into it as an asset. And because then you were it was kind of run itself like as an evergreen. And I remember you just saying one day, I'm not doing it. Like, you'd put all this work and time into it, and I think you'd even had a team who'd put work and time into it, and that's how it was going to run. And then one day something happened, and you just decided, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm dumping it. Like, not even selling it. I'm dumping this. It's no longer. And I just remember being in so much shock, but also really just in awe of how you could put so much time into something and history and then just be like, this isn't for me anymore. I think it's a really rare person who can actually, I don't know, just have that level of trust and belief in themselves, and like really trust that instinct and inkling enough to be able to make big, brave decisions like that. So I'd love to know a little bit more about how that experience was for you.
I think, and it's interesting because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about all of the times that I have done that, you know, and I just did that 2 years ago with the Freedom Experience, which was a 7-figure revenue stream. So when we talk about time, we talk about energy, we talk about team, like I did that then. And I think that I'm trying to go back. So that's probably letting go of the Calm Birth School. I knew I'd held on to it for too long, and that stops the flow. And I knew that it was slowing the flow rather than stopping it. It was slowing the flow. So when it came to the baby business school, I'd already had that experience of feeling like my fear was slowing my flow. And so what I had to do, and I still teach this now, I was literally saying this at the weekend, I had to develop a belief that there is always at least one person in your audience right now that is waiting for your next thing. Doesn't matter what that next thing is or what the price is, there is always at least one person who is like, oh my God. Now, if there is one, there is always another one. And if there is another one, there is some. Like, that has been true for me since the beginning, like since the first sale. There was somebody waiting for the digital version of the Calm Birth School. Do you know what I mean? They were, oh my God, first £97. That woman we are still friends on Facebook. That woman has gone on and spent thousands and thousands of pounds with me because she's waiting for the next thing and waiting for the next thing. And now she's a hypnotherapist, by the way, which she shared with me a couple of months ago. And I'm just like, so that was the belief that I developed then, which gave me permission to, and still gives me permission to do different things. And I think that one of the things that I battle with clients who know that they want to make a pivot, but are like, oh, but my audience are used to me doing this and I'm not allowed to do that. And I'm like, do you know what? Most of the time, nobody actually gives a shit. Do you know what I mean? You're the center of your world. You think that you're the center, you're not the center of their world, you know? And there is somebody who wants your next thing, who can't buy it at the moment because you're messing around with this idea that if you pivot, it's like starting again. It's never starting again, because you have all of the experience that you have gained to get you to this point. You use that in the next project. And my only caveat to that would be, if I were going to do things a little bit differently, I probably wouldn't shut down like £1 million revenue stream and be like, oh yeah, we'll just find the next thing, because I didn't know what was replacing it. And I think that is a common theme for me, is often I don't know exactly what is going to replace it, but I know that I've got to create space for the next thing in order for it to be born. The last one felt like a big one.
Yeah, it definitely, it sounds like a big one for sure.
It was.
So my next question, maybe that's the answer to it, but I was going to ask, is there anything that you wish you'd done differently on your business journey to this point?
I think that it's just, with that last example, we're looking at economies of scale. So when I'm making a decision to not do the baby business school anymore, I don't even have a team. I might have one team member, like my VA. Everybody else is contractors. Everybody else is waiting to respond to me. Whereas in my current, like a decade later, there's a whole team. The biggest a team has been 12 people. And so when you make a decision to shut down something like that, there's a huge amount of impact on other people, that it's just different than when you're starting out and there's like one or two people. And so the thing that I would have done differently there is just have a much clearer line of sight about what was replacing that piece in my business model. That I would do differently. And then I think that everything else, so people often say to me, what would you say to your younger self? I wouldn't do anything really differently, because every step that I've taken, every mistake that I've made has led me to this point in time. But when people say to me, what would you say to your younger self? I say, this is what I would say to you. And that is just, don't waste time. Like, stop thinking about it. Stop researching it. Stop, asking everybody what they would do and what they would buy. Just take fucking action way more quickly. Some things you are going to, in inverted commas, fail at. That's feedback. It's data. You analyze the feedback and then you optimize. You change a couple of things and you go again. Feedback, go again, feedback, go again, feedback, go again. I think the only difference between me and many people is that when I get feedback, I just go again, whereas a lot of people get feedback and just stop. That is the only thing. Like, don't waste time. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. 6 months' time isn't guaranteed. A year definitely is not guaranteed. So just take action now and use the feedback appropriately. That's what I would say. You didn't ask me that question. I asked myself that question, but there we go.
It's good. It was a good answer. I think, yeah, there's so many people listening to this that we know, with lots of people we work with or who are in our audience, who they've got ideas, they've got, they've had an idea or they've got something they'd love to bring, but they see it like, it's their like 1 day thing. It's their 5-year plan. It's their 10-year plan. It's for their, God's sakes, when the kids have left home plan. Do you know what I mean? And it's really frustrating. But I think, and Liz will probably agree with this, although we are quite go for it people, I don't even think we're not go for it quite on your level. This is quite good coaching, I think, for me and Liz, because we've got a few things that we're battling with along these lines. But I digress. But I think what I'd love to know, I think what would be really helpful to people listening to this would be like, what does, you just say sort of just go for it, but I know that there are, you get doubts, you get blocks, you get things that sort of stand in your way. So tell us a little bit about your sort of like your routine, your rituals. What are the sort of tools that you use to kind of get over those those tricky, annoying little voices that try and stop you from taking this action you're talking about?
I think that I have an unfair advantage in the fact that I am a single mum who pays for everything. So that, many people will think that that is a disadvantage. For me, it is an advantage, because if I don't get my shit together, nobody gets fed. And I think that when you are in an environment where there's two of you and there's somebody to pick up the slack, I think it can be a lot easier to get in your own head about it, a lot easier to wallow in the, I just don't know, and I'm confused, and I just need a bit more clarity, because you know that there is somebody who's going to support you. So I know that I will be in the minority of people here in your community, but I think that it's important to say that that is part of the thing that keeps me going. Like, I don't have time to pretend that somebody's going to come and rescue me. Like, I have to rescue myself every single time I make a fuck up. And I wasn't always a single mum. So it's only been in the last 3 years that has been my that's been my situation. So before then, I think that I'm just really clear on my own mortality, which really comes back to what I was saying before about time isn't guaranteed. So there is a very big driving force within me that is just important to me and very, very present within me, that I want to die feeling like I have lived. And that is the thing that really keeps me going. And for like a little bit of extra context for people, I was fostered at the age of 3 months old, and at 19 my foster mother passed away, and then at 23 my foster father passed away, and then this year one of my best friends, 46 years old, passed away. So for me, losing my mum at a relatively early age, that's something that I don't have to work hard in order for it to be continuously present for me. Same with my dad. And then getting to this age now where people are starting to experience different health ailments. I feel differently because of the perimenopause. I'm very aware that time is our only non-renewable resource. And again, biggest tragedy has been my biggest gift. I was given that gift when I lost my mum. Most people act like there's always going to be a tomorrow, and it's just not guaranteed. So the fear of leaving my job, I was on about, 50, 60,000 like 10 years ago before commission. It was it was a well-paid job. The fear of staying in that job and dying and feeling like I had wasted my time, that was enough to take the risk. Am I going to regret risking it all and losing it all? I think because of the work that I do on myself as an individual, and now that work looks very, very different, but I the type of work that I would say is like I'm focused on how do I get the most out of life? How can I be more of myself? I don't believe that I'm a mistake. I don't believe that the fullest, most self-expressed Suzy Ashworth is a mistake. Do you know what I mean? So that means the process of me becoming more fully expressed, even if I am taken down a path where it looks like it's messy, or it looks like it's wrong, like I really trust that that's where I'm supposed to be. I'm very mindful of like not throwing out worst case scenarios, because I don't like to like plant seeds of that in the universe. But like I trust my kids picked myself and my ex to be their parents, not because we were supposed to be perfect parents, not because we were supposed to be there together with them for their entire life, but because of the lessons that we as individuals and as a couple are able to teach them. Like I trust that we are where we are supposed to be on an individual level, on a couple level, on a parenting level. And when I say that, like, parenting's so hard for me right now, but like I trust that everything is as it's supposed to be. So I think a lot of people move through life being afraid of making the wrong decision. I think a lot of people move through life feeling like I am not enough, I'm not good enough, I've already failed because I'm not where I thought I should be, would be, could be. I have done a lot of work to notice when I'm in that headspace. And I ask myself, well, what would I do if I'm acting in alignment with the highest vision that I have for myself? And that is really across all aspects. And as I'm saying, I was saying to my best friend this morning, who is in South Africa, Anna, who I don't know if you've connected with yet, but I was literally saying
we have, but not recently.
Yeah. I was literally saying on voice note to her, I was talking about a guy that I was dating, and I was just really like, oh no, this is either practice or he's the one, but the practice isn't in how I mold myself into what he could possibly want. Like the highest vision I have for myself is that I'm fully self-expressed in relationship. So all I have to do is practice being fully self-expressed with him right now. And if that is too much for him, it's not I'm too much. It's just that he's not the right one. But it's amazing practice, because the more self-expressed I am in this, whatever this thing is that we're doing, but in this, the closer it gets me to just being more fully self-expressed, which means that I will attract somebody who is attracted to my full self-expression. That is the same. I trust that. I trust that whether it looks like it's working or it's not working.
What an answer.
And all of this is just, it's really, you're really speaking into the infinite receiving message here. I mean, I know because I really want you to plug some of this stuff as well, because it's such an important message. I mean, this is why I love everything you do, all the support that you've ever given me and all the programs that I've worked on with you and everything, because it's what I see and what I've experienced from you is that that trust, that belief about being, imperfectly perfect. We are whole, we are born whole. And that's how, so we can't really get it wrong as such. That is just such a beautiful message. But I love how you've expanded it into the Infinite Receiving book. You've just come off the Infinite Receiving live 3-day event. So I know it's something that's probably quite hard to summarize, but would you be able to share a little bit more with us about that? The concept.
Yeah. So the summary version is everything that I have been through in life up until this point, and now everything that I am creating is really based on 4 core beliefs, 4 pillars. And those pillars are the pillar of infinite greatness. So it's really me choosing to know that my soul, my unique essence, this version of myself, this unique fingerprint is absolutely enough. And it's not just enough, actually, it is great. There is never going to be another Suzy Ashworth that walks this planet. And my job is to walk through this planet knowing that, It's to trust that my message, when I am when I allow myself to express myself fully and wholly and completely, can never be replicated. The way that I say it, the frequency that it's received in, none of that can be replicated, and that is fucking valuable. So that's the first pillar. And when you nail that for yourself, it makes it that much easier for you to see that in every other human being that you come into contact with. And I believe that if that was the only thing that people took from infinite receiving, that in and of itself, knowing your greatness and seeing it in other people, that would change the entire world. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is the pillar of infinite support. You have to, if you want to create a big impact, you have to allow yourself to be supported. Even if your big impact doesn't look like thousands of people on stage, becoming a world leader, if you want to make a big impact, even in your family, trying to do everything on your own, trying to hold it together on your own forever. There's a reason why people say it takes a village. I want people to give themselves permission to tap into the village. And the way that I talk about that in the book is on a very practical level, like in our lives, like when somebody says, can I get the door for you? Say yes. Someone says, can I take your bag? Say yes. Like on a very practical level. And then for me, on a spiritual level, it is knowing that there is guidance that is happening for me at all times. And when I allow myself to tap into that, it reduces the amount of fear that I walk through the world in, because I know that there is something higher, there is something bigger, there is something greater, there is an infinite frequency of intelligence that I get to tap into and utilize on a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis. So that's the second pillar. The third pillar is the pillar of infinite love. This is my favourite pillar. I think this has made the biggest difference to me in my life over the last few years. And that is really just moving from being a kind-hearted person to an open-hearted person. And what that means in like real talk is just allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing people to actually be able to feel how much you care, how much you love. And up until a few years ago, I was very defensive of my heart. My heart was broken like right at the beginning when I was fostered, and it didn't feel safe to allow people to touch it, including my husband, including, I would even say, my children. So I have done a lot of work to give myself permission to ultimately have my heart broken again. I talk about being willing to have your heart smashed into 1,000 pieces, and you have to be willing to commit to that in order to feel the infinite love that is available. It's risky and it's vulnerable and it's messy and it's beautiful. So that is the third pillar. And the fourth pillar is the pillar of infinite co-creation, conscious co-creation. This is the magic. This is knowing that everything that you desire is there and available for you. And when you start living your life as though magic is your birthright, it's an extension of you, you are magic and you get to create it, that changes everything and opens you up to receiving infinitely more across every area of your life. That is it in summary.
Please go back and listen to the book all over again.
I was thinking exactly the same. I need to read the book for the fifth time.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I need to go back to my notes. I need to go back and listen again. No, it's if anyone listening hasn't read or listened to Suzy's book, then go and check it out. Infinite Receiving is brilliant. It's so, your style of writing generally anyway is just like really easy to read and follow and understand, and it's just like listening to an old friend tell you what you need to know in order to create the most amazing life. So it's brilliant. But I've been thinking while you've been talking about what you said right at the beginning of the podcast, Suzy, when we started talking about the beginning of your journey, and you said one of the reasons why you started this work, you went into the birth world, was for your kids, and you wanted them to see that whatever is possible. So do you feel like you've accomplished that mission, and what impact do you think that has had on your kids now?
Yeah. Well, as always, pros and cons, swings and roundabouts. But I definitely feel like they will look back when they are older, and potentially when they have children, if they have children, and they will be very, very proud. They will understand me on a whole different level. I think they're at the age now where they do kind of like the book, especially, and getting to Sunday Times bestseller, like being able to celebrate that with them, and then because they're a little bit older, having a bit of comprehension, like, oh, I think that might be quite cool. Seeing me on stages and traveling, I think that they are like, oh, this is different. I think that that's where they are like, this is different and this is good. Mostly it's good. And I joke with the swings and roundabouts is, I have 3 very precocious, very confident, very self-assured human beings, which come from, my and Jerome's DNA. So I'm like, I'm at that stage where I'm like, could you just allow me to manipulate you just a little more than what you are willing to? They're like, no. And I'm sure that is definitely a product of seeing me forge my own path. I feel like a good mum, and that I am proud of, and I love the humans that are developing on a daily basis, even though they do drive me to distraction many, many times over. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like we're doing it.
Definitely. Good. That sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'd relate on that. Oh my gosh. We've got 17-year-olds now, haven't we, Liz? So we're like, yeah, it's a lot. Why do we think it gets easier? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what that thing is when they're little.
It's old people. It doesn't get easier.
Yeah. It doesn't.
No.
I said this the other day.
Yeah.
I was crying on my toilet seat thinking, oh my God, I remember when I used to walk around the house crying, being like, I just want some sleep. I'm just so tired. Now I would take those days back a million times over. A million times over. Oh, yeah. It's a different kettle of fish.
It's very confronting. I think especially like, because as when you can't remember being little so much, or but when you can really reflect what they're going through compared to what you went through, and we don't want them to make the mistakes that we made, but at the same time our mistakes made us who we are, and it's just all this big mess of it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. But biggest teachers, best lessons. So
yeah,
100%,
for sure.
100%. So as we come to the end of the podcast, we would like to ask you, what is the one piece of advice, just one, that you would pass on to birth and baby business owners to help them create an impactful and sustainable?
Oh, I feel like you know what I'm going to say here. I would say, remember this phrase, which is faith plus action equals miracles. That is something that I have been saying. It's an affirmation that I've been saying to myself for the last 13 years. If you came to my home, you would see it. It's in neon lights. It's painted. I've got it tattooed on my wrist. I'm like, that affirmation has changed my life a million times over. And so it's choosing belief and then taking aligned action. Belief, aligned action, belief, aligned action, belief, aligned action, again and again and again. And you will create miracles beyond your tiny little mind can even imagine.
Oh, what a perfect piece of advice.
So good, and great place to finish up. And I just want to say thank you, Suzy, for joining us. We've extremely honoured and grateful that you came and spoke to us today. This is actually our birthday episode. So when this episode goes out, we will be celebrating 1 whole year of the Baba podcast without missing a single week. We're very proud of ourselves. Give ourselves a little pat on the back for that as well. And so thank you. You're mentioned, your name comes up in so many episodes because you have been such a mentor to both of us. You know, we wouldn't be where we are today in business or in our lives probably without your guidance and mentorship and inspiration throughout the years. So thank you. And I hope everybody has enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. Leave us a message below, you know, all the usual stuff. Leave us a review or come and chat to us about it on Instagram. We would love to hear your thoughts, and we will see you next time. And we'll pop all of Suzy's details as well below in the show notes so that you can follow up and check out all the stuff that she's got going on.
Please do. And thank you very much for having me. You both mean the world to me. So it is an absolute honour and a privilege to be here. And I will say that you can get the book for free if you go to suzyashworth.com/book for free. If you are interested in getting more infinite receiving in your lives. Thank you.
You.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Suzy. Bye.